Hey there! In today's video, I'm going to show you how I prune my tomatoes and cucumbers. So this was a pretty well requested video, happy to share. As most of my videos, I like to have a disclaimer that there are many ways to do this. This is just how I do it. Especially with tomatoes, most growers get one, maybe two chances a year to work on tomatoes. So it's one of those things that you learn a lot every year that you do it, and this is only my second season. So let me show you how I go about doing each one. So let's start with the indeterminate tomatoes. All right, so I'm growing indeterminate tomatoes in the greenhouse, and it's really crowded in there, so I just want to talk to you for a second before I head in there and show you some details. I've been pruning these consistently since they've started growing, and when they first start growing, they grow so fast, and you really got to stay on top of the pruning. If you really wanted to, you could probably go in there every day or two, but for me it turns out to be every 4 or 5 days, or maybe even a week, and just stay on top of it. Really helps the plant's growth and keep things under control. So as I said, these are indeterminate tomatoes, and if you don't know the difference, indeterminate tomatoes will just keep growing taller and taller and keep fruiting. A lot of people will do this method where they lower and lean, so they have the string tied up in a roll or something on top, and as they grow they just lower it down, and the plant will just keep growing and keep fruiting. But I'm doing a little bit differently here, and as I said, there are lots of ways to do things. We're just going up to the top, and once they sort of get to the top and they run out of room, and we're just going to terminate them at the top, and that'll force their energy down into the plant to try to produce more fruit. The other kind of tomato that you can have is a determinate tomato, and we don't grow many of those, but we do have a few just for our personal garden, so I'll show you those too. So there are, I would say, two main things about pruning indeterminate tomatoes, so let me show you those. All right, the first thing I want to do here is talk about what I've heard is called as hard pruning. And so what you do is you just prune all of the branches at the bottom of the plant up and around the fruit sets. And as the plant continues to fruit up higher, you just keep pruning all the branches out around the fruit sets. So you can see it looks kind of weird if you've never seen this. All you see at the bottom of the plant are just, you know, all the tomatoes. And this works great because it does a couple things. One is that it keeps really good airflow around the base of the plant where you can have sort of fungal and other sort of issues. So it just keeps a lot of air moving around so you don't have a lot of foliage on the ground, and keeping it wet keeps the plants nice and dry at the base, which is great for tomatoes. The other thing is it allows the sunlight to really penetrate down and to ripen the fruit a little faster. So you can see here that, like, you know, this fruit set here, there's no leaves around it, which is what I want. So, like, for example, up here, trying to do this one-handed, but you see there's a fruit set there, so I'm just going to cut that guy off there, and maybe this guy right here, if you can see that. So, you know, it's not an exact science, but, you know, you just want to trim out around them, and, you know, as the plants grow up, you'll just be pruning up higher and higher, and it works out because there's foliage at the top, so they're still able to photosynthesize. All right, so the other main thing you have to worry about when pruning is called a sucker, and this is exactly what a sucker is. You can see right here, you have the main branch that goes up, and this is a side branch here, and this dude right here in the corner, see this guy right here? That's called the sucker, and you want to make sure you prune those out. Now, when they're small, you can often just you know, break them, snap them off, but I like to use these guys here and just get a nice clean cut. That's it. So you want to make sure you take off every sucker at any stage for indeterminate tomatoes. That will cause the plant to continue to grow upwards, and you know, put the energy in the right place. So make sure you stay on top of the suckers. They can get huge, so it's one of those things you just want to stay on top of. So with determinate tomatoes, it's a little bit different. Now, I don't have a lot of experience with these. We're just growing a few this year for our family, and so I can't really speak much about pruning determinate tomatoes. There are some people that say that you shouldn't prune them at all. I've read some recommendations that you can prune them a little bit, and I think I'm gonna prune them a little bit. One thing that I've heard that is good is just to not heavily prune them, because they're not gonna keep growing. They're gonna get to a certain size, right? A determinate size. So you don't want to prune them heavily because it'll really stunt their growth and their ability to produce fruit. So the thing that I'm gonna do here, which I haven't done yet, is pruning the suckers up until the first flowering set, and then that's it. You know, because once it gets to a certain size, you want it to just push out as much fruit as possible, and you don't want to stunt that growth by cutting things off. So, but one thing is, you can see there's a lot of foliage around the base, which makes me want to make sure I clear some of that out so that the airflow can get in here and keep the plant really healthy. So, again, with Determinate, I'm going to prune all the suckers up into the first flowering point, and that will be it. Okay, so before we get into cucumbers, I just want to talk about the tool that I'm using here. I like these little pruners that have the really sharp tips on them. You can get them that have a wider tip for cutting bigger stems, but I like these because you can really get in there. They're really accurate. These are made by Dram. I just picked these up recently. I like a lot of the Dram products. I'm not sponsored by them or anything. It's just I use a lot of their watering wands and stuff like that. So I'll leave a link for this in the description if you guys are interested. They're pretty inexpensive. It was like 13 bucks, and you know, I bought the ones at like Lowe's or Home Depot, and they last like a month and fall apart. These are very heavy duty, and they're stainless steel. So anyways, I like these, and I like the really accurate, really small ones because you can really just get in there and get those little suckers out. So, all right, with cucumbers, if any of you guys have ever grown cucumbers, you know how crazy and out of control they can get so quickly. So you should really stay on top of the pruning with these guys to control them and then to you know, make sure that they're going where you want and fruiting as best as possible. A lot of methods in pruning cucumbers. I've seen some really cool ones. JM Fortier's got a really cool one. He calls it the umbrella trellising, and he goes up and then over and then has the plants come down with huge yields. It's a little more involved, so I'm just gonna keep it really simple. I'm just gonna have the plants go up and then go back down. So let me show you the basics of cucumber trellising, because I think it's a little bit more, a little different than tomatoes. All right, so to understand cucumber trellising, we have to talk, you know, how the plant really is put together here. And you got to recognize each node, and the node is where all the business goes down on the plant. That's where all the connections are. So take a look at the node. You'll see there's a main stem coming up and a main stem going out the top. And at every node, you're going to have a couple different things going on. You're going to have a fruit. So you can see the little cucumber here with the flower, where the flower's gone. You're going to have a tendril, and these is what they use to grab onto stuff. You're going to have one leaf. You can see the one leaf, and then you have another thing coming out right here. This is the sucker, the other thing. And you can see that the sucker turns into a whole nother plant with a lot more business. So I'm gonna make sure that I take off that sucker, and this one's a little overdue. I've been behind on pruning. And that will keep the plant nice and clean and keep the energy going in the right direction. And so that's how you prune cucumbers. Pretty straightforward. This is what it's all about. So I just want to give you guys another resource here. This book is awesome. Andrew Mefford is just an amazing author and just a really knowledgeable dude. I am not sponsored by Andrew or this publisher or anything like that, but this book's been awesome. Andrew also just came out with a new book called The Organic No-Till Revolution, something like that. I haven't read it yet, but I've heard amazing things. This book's all about greenhouse production. And you know what, even if you don't have a greenhouse or a high tunnel, there's a lot of really cool information here. Not a super expensive book. I will leave a link in the description below. There's a lot of stuff about pruning in here, growing all different crops for high tunnel production or greenhouse production. So yeah, if you're interested in this stuff and you want a little more in-depth knowledge, yeah, I'd recommend checking this book out. One last thing about cucumber pruning is just be careful, go slow. Last year I was rushing at some points and I would cut the wrong one and then cut the main stem instead of a sucker. So just really pay attention. They start to get really intertwined. You got to make sure you're following and just paying attention so you don't do that. Anyways, a lot of you guys have probably seen my video about this trellis. I'll put a link up there so you guys can check it out. Just an update, it's holding up well. The pipe bending a little bit, but it's still holding. If you are worried about the weight on this sort of trellis system, feel free to use larger conduit. This is 1/2 inch, you could use 3/4, or you could just put more posts in more often and it'll hold it up too. But so far so good. Now, if you didn't see my last video, please check that one out. I talk about my background and the story here on the farm and what I'm gonna do with the channel. But you know, a lot of this information that I get is just from other people. So for example, this trellis idea was from Connor Crickmore at Neversink Farm, an amazing farmer, and just check out all his stuff too. He's just, man, his farm is incredible. And then like the trellising idea with the bamboo, with the twine from Curtis Stone. So, you know, it's stuff that I just take from all different places, and hopefully you guys will take some of this information and apply it in your farm or your garden and share it with other people. That's the whole idea here. So, Yeah, I got a long list of topics that you guys have recommended, and I appreciate that immensely. I only have time to do so many videos a week, and I'm trying to squeeze them in amongst farming. This farm is a one-man show at the moment, so I'm not just farming, harvesting, marketing, selling, running the business, all that stuff, but I also have 2 kids and a wife. I'm trying to squeeze everything in. So I appreciate all of the feedback and interaction with everyone. It's been awesome, and I'll keep making these videos for you guys. And please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video, share with your friends. We got to get information out to as many people as possible. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.